Football has always celebrated the players who score the goals. The bicycle kicks, the last-minute winners, the dazzling dribbles that leave defenders on the floor. These are the moments that make headlines and create legends. But every so often, a player comes along who changes football without relying on any of those things. No flashy tricks, no endless celebrations, no constant search for the spotlight, just intelligence, discipline, and complete control. For years, Rodri quietly became the heartbeat of the greatest football team in the world. Most fans admired Manchester City's attacking stars. They talked about Erling Haaland's goals, Kevin De Bruyne's passing, and Pep Guardiola's tactical genius. But hidden beneath all that brilliance was one player who made everything work. His name was Rodri, and by the time the football world realized how important he was, he had already changed the game forever. Growing up in Spain, Rodri wasn't the type of player who attracted attention. He wasn't the quickest. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the most skillful player on the pitch. Instead, he possessed something far more valuable, an extraordinary football mind. While others chased the ball, Rodri studied it. He understood where space would appear before anyone else did. He anticipated danger before it even existed. He knew when to speed up the game and when to slow it down. He wasn't reacting to football. He was controlling it. That ability made him different from almost every midfielder of his generation. In 2019, Manchester City signed Rodri from Atletico Madrid to replace club legend Fernandinho. Many supporters questioned the decision. Replacing one of the Premier League's greatest defensive midfielders seemed almost impossible. Rodri also arrived without the glamour that surrounded many expensive signings. He wasn't scoring spectacular goals every week. He wasn't filling social media with highlight clips. Many wondered whether he was really worth the investment. Pep Guardiola never doubted him, because Guardiola wasn't looking for another goal scorer. He was looking for the player who could control every match. Every great orchestra needs a conductor. Every great football team needs one too. Rodri became that conductor. Whenever Manchester City regained possession, teammates instinctively looked for him. Under pressure, he never panicked. When opponents pressed aggressively, he calmly found the right pass. He always seemed to have more time than everyone else, and slowly Manchester City became almost impossible to stop. People often describe Guardiola's Manchester City as a perfectly built machine, but every machine depends on one essential component. Remove that single piece, and everything begins to fall apart. Rodri was that piece. His role went far beyond making tackles. He controlled the rhythm of every game. One pass could eliminate an entire press. One interception could stop a dangerous counterattack. One intelligent movement could create space for teammates without touching the ball. These moments rarely appeared in highlight videos, yet they decided matches every single week. While television cameras focused on goal scorers, coaches, analysts, and fellow professionals were watching Rodri, they understood something many fans didn't. Football isn't always won by the player who scores. Sometimes it's won by the player who makes sure everyone else can. Then came the biggest night in Manchester City's history, the UEFA Champions League final against Inter Milan. For years, City had chased European glory. Every failure had increased the pressure. This was supposed to be the night they finally completed their journey. But Inter Milan refused to give them an easy victory. The match became tense. Every mistake felt like it could decide history. Then, midway through the second half, the moment arrived. The ball broke loose inside the penalty area. Rodri remained calm. One touch, one perfectly placed finish. The ball rolled into the bottom corner. Manchester City had finally conquered Europe. The winning goal didn't come from a striker. It didn't come from the Premier League's top scorer. It came from the quiet midfielder who had spent years making everyone else shine. And somehow, that made the story even more perfect. If that goal introduced Rodri to the world, what happened whenever he didn't play proved just how valuable he really was. Manchester City still had world-class players. They still had Pep Guardiola. They still dominated possession. But something was missing. The rhythm disappeared. The balance disappeared. The calmness disappeared. Suddenly, the same team looked vulnerable. It wasn't because Rodri scored dozens of goals. It was because he connected every part of the team. He protected the defense. He supported the midfield. He started attacks. He controlled the tempo. Without him, Manchester City simply weren't the same. That was the moment football fans truly understood his importance. Rodri wasn't just another player inside Guardiola's system. He was the system. For decades, football rewarded attackers above everyone else. Goals won awards. Goals won headlines. Goals created superstars. Defensive midfielders often remained in the background, despite being just as important. Rodri helped change that conversation. He reminded the football world that intelligence could dominate matches just as much as speed or skill. Young midfielders began focusing more on positioning. Coaches placed greater value on controlling space. Clubs searched for players capable of dictating matches rather than simply producing highlights. The role that had spent years hidden in the shadows suddenly became one of the most respected positions in football. Rodri didn't invent defensive midfield play. Legends before him had already shown its importance. But he brought renewed appreciation to a position that many supporters had overlooked for years. His influence reached far beyond Manchester City. He changed how millions of football fans watched the game. People started paying attention to the passes before the assist, the interception before the counterattack, the positioning that prevented danger before it ever happened. They began noticing the details that truly win championships. That is Rodri's greatest legacy, not just the trophies, not just the winning goal in Istanbul, not just the records. His greatest achievement is changing the way football is understood. Because after Rodri, supporters no longer looked only at the player who scored the goal. They started appreciating the player who made the goal possible. And that is why Rodri will always be remembered as far more than a world-class midfielder. He will be remembered as the man who changed football forever. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe to Football Icon Stories for more untold football stories from the biggest names in the game.